This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
So the Helix Stadium XL, one of the features that I've been trying to get my head around a bit is this showcase element, which to me, at first glance, was not something I could see myself using. However, I've had some chats with some people in the DMs and also thought about it a little bit more and experimented with things in a way, and I think maybe this is a little bit of a glimpse into what the life of the touring guitar player is kind of edging closer towards. And I think that's what Line 6 are trying to get ahead of with this. With it being the idea that the Stadium will now be like a choice for, a piece of gear that can run track, can send out commands to other bits and pieces, but can also respond to those things for the guitarist, changing presets, setting flags in line with the track. Like, it's more than just a guitar-based thing right now. It's kind of now like a show running device, which is a really interesting sort of change. But let's get into it a bit. Really, this is in some ways designed to be a pro feature and to entice touring musicians with this kind of thing. Now, I saw there was a post from Sevendust Tech, like behind the stage. I think there were 2 Axe effects in the rack, but there were also like some pedal boards, and he was actually controlling a Digitech whammy for the solo and doing kind of like some pretty hands-on stuff on some boards that were behind the scenes. And it's this kind of thing that I think is getting closer to being like automated, as certainly pop shows are very much, on the rails these days. Even, rock shows, instrumental guitar shows, anytime you're running track, there is an opportunity to kind of automate a show around that. I think this has kind of changed over the years, but it used to be the case that you'd have like a pretty dedicated thing. So in my pop band in the 2010s, there was a Fostex kind of hard drive thing. I think Coldplay used to use these. They were supposed to be more stable because people had tried using laptops and they found like actually vibrations and these sorts of things can sometimes be a little bit unreliable. In 2025, I saw Adam Neely live. He was just running stuff off a laptop. I think people have kind of gone back to a little bit more of this kind of laptop-based setup. And also, I saw a post from KasparJalily, who was selling presets for Ableton. And Kaspar works in like hip-hop bands and touring bands and stuff like that. And it's interesting to think that he has this insight as an MD for this stuff as to what like is actually happening, and you know, he's putting together shows, and from that I guess we can assume that there are going to be a certain amount of guitarists that just go direct into whatever is running the whole show, like Ableton. And this is, I guess, what Line 6 have kind of predicted and are trying to get in on to some extent, right? Because obviously there's already Helix Native, so you could in theory on Ableton run Helix Native, or you could run Neural DSP plugins and stuff like that, but there's not been something from the guitar modeling world that can actually run the tracks. So that's kind of a new thing. Is it interesting for anyone other than pros or touring pros specifically? Because, you know, in my context, in bands where I don't run tracks or anything like that, am I going to use this? I don't think so. I had a message from Kevin who said, let me get this right. If I'm understanding correctly, I could upload some songs and break them down into stems. So that's kind of point one, like breaking down songs into stems. That was one of the things that Eric Klein said. So that in itself is actually a thing that you pay for like companies like Moises and stuff like that to do, right? Send the non-guitar stems to a couple of PA speakers. Send a guitar signal with or without the guitar stems to either the FR12s, like Fender FR12s, or real amp and cab. Have Showcase do all of the preset / snapshot / MIDI changes, and send a separate mix with a dedicated click to an in-ear system if desired, and could do that anywhere from at home to on a stage, all without connecting to a computer or a laptop. And then he said, does that sound right? And I just checked with Igor, who is a Reddit mod, but also does front of house for Bear McCreary and Animals as Leaders. And he kind of confirmed that's basically it. So that's kind of how you could use this at home. Another way that you could potentially use it, so you could have backing tracks, you load them into your Helix, and you could say, well, actually, like, I want it to switch at this point between two different tones or snapshots or whatever. That's kind of a legitimate way that I think you could get like a bit of a different experience from what's going on. So load your backing tracks into your Helix Stadium, point your, you know, flags in it, and then you could go from like clean for reverse to, you know, clean with a delay. So if you are in this state where you're running things to track or you're using backing tracks, I think you could quite easily enhance your experience. And what Eric Klein has kind of said is that
the Showcase lets you easily drag flags onto the song's timeline where you want that event to take place. So now your song can recall presets or snapshots, control all of your looper functions, switch your real amps channels, and remote control all of your MIDI-equipped pedals, synths, lighting, software, video, and much more without a single foot switch press. Showcase allows the technology to just sort of melt away so you can focus on what matters: your performance, your bandmates, and the audience.
Best experience is having no button to press, where you're just thinking about playing the guitar. So I'd love to know your thoughts on some of that. I'm going to jump into Helix Native here and just show you in the DAW what this actually looks like in terms of automation in the DAW at the moment, because you could, in theory, do some of this already, especially if you're using Ableton or something like that, and loading Helix Native as a plugin in that regard. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Is this something you're interested in? Can you get your head around it? For me, I'm kind of struggling to conceptualize some of it, but I think it is definitely new in the guitar space and in the guitar modeling world. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so jumping in here, you can see I've got an Automation track here on the Helix Native, and it's set up for a few things. So we've got switch 10, 11, and snapshot index. So this is how I was doing that intro stuff. For instance, if I look here at Helix Native, this Automation track here is going on the snapshot index. So it switches between three snapshots for which we have different things that this pitch does. And that's how I did that intro part. So that's one thing that you could consider doing. Another aspect is over here you see more gain. So you could kind of view this as like, this could be like verse, chorus, that sort of thing. But where you've got that change, if I go to here, snapshot index, if we view it, so here we're in snapshot 3, which is my clean. If we go to here, we're dirty. If we go to here, we got even more. So you could, per track, have those kind of changes automated, or you could go even deeper and you could have, so switch 11 here is actually switching on or off a poly pitch. If we go in here, so this is doing that thing like the Tech with its Digitech whammy kind of is turning on or off bypass as the track goes. The way that's set up is you go in here, automation bypass, assign it to switch 11, and then over here basically make switch 11 do that. So it's really quite a powerful idea already, and you could, if you were running Ableton, already do Helix Native in this kind of way. I guess the Helix Stadium is going to be pushing this forward in terms of using your Helix Stadium as kind of the brains instead of a laptop, and maybe this will be a thing that actually catches on even more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.